Hello, Tree Movement family. I am Paige and I am with,
Emma.
and we are a part of Dream Movement Katie. And we're super excited. It is Sunday at 11 a.m. and we are going to be continuing our deeper series with a topic today called Deeper Healing. We have been in this series for now, like what, over a month.
Yeah.
And we've just been talking about going deeper with God and all the different areas of that and what that looks like in our personal lives and what God has spoken to us on that journey. And so, Emma and I, like I said, are going to be talking today about deeper healing. And our heart is to really kind of share some maybe different lenses and different perspectives that you've had um, of healing. And so, that's kind of our heart today behind this message for y'all. But we're super excited. And so for me, when I think about healing, like I've done all the things when you think of healing, like I've done counseling, I've done curriculums, right? So like I've done curriculums inside of the church, kind of a free curriculum you could call it, or yeah, I've done everything. I've done long curriculums, 8 months. I've done short curriculums, 3 months. I've done counseling. Um, and and it's not that those things didn't help me. They definitely did. They all had purpose. I think those things they're very needed and they have a lot of purpose behind them. But I I sometimes left those things, Emma, feeling kind of like exhausted. Like by the end of, the 3 months or the 8 months, I had felt just exhausted. And what I found was it was mindset. So my mindset was like, okay, I'm going to do this for 8 months, or I'm going to do this, I'm going to do counseling for 12 weeks, whatever the case may be. And it's not that it didn't help me. It absolutely did. I want to make sure that is very clear. All good things. But what I realized was my mindset after it, Emma, was like, oh, well, now I'm good. Like, now I should be totally fine. And I shouldn't ever feel triggered. I shouldn't ever, they didn't offend me or whatever the case may be. And that wasn't the case. Things were better, but I still was a human being. And there were still areas of my mind and just my heart that I felt like, man, like, well, they're not healed. And so what God did for me over the past year is he's kind of changed my perspective on healing rather than viewing it as like this event. Like I'm in a season of healing, or I'm in this curriculum for healing. A season of healing and a curriculum for healing, not bad. But then we can think that at the end of it, I should be all good, right? And so rather God kind of showed me that healing with him is really just a lifelong journey. And it's not necessarily like a one-time event or a one-time season, but rather God's very presence is healing. And so when we come to him daily, when we come into his presence and we come to spend time with him and we really surrender just that time to him and we surrender ourselves to him, God really shows us and begins to reveal to us any places where he wants to heal. And so I began to just kind of go to God in my time with God, not with any kind of strategy or intent, but just come to him. And he would bring up things that I would have never honestly thought up. I wouldn't have thought about bringing them up. I probably couldn't even remember them. And he would bring them up just so gently and so delicately. And he would just kind of show me you know, the repercussions, right, of kind of how that incident or time affected me now, and maybe why I kind of think the way I do or why I operate the way I do, and how that really hurt me. And then through my understanding of that and through kind of understanding the why, I really began to experience healing because I didn't feel like I was wrong, or I didn't feel like God was mad at me. I rather, understood greater, oh, like, this is how this affected me. This is why I have mindset. This is why I, can react the way I do. There's nothing wrong with me. It's just, this is my experience. And so I no longer say I'm in a healing season, or, because I'm understanding that, when the time is fit, Emma, God will heal what he wants to heal. God will reveal what he wants to reveal. And we don't have to view it so much as a task, and we don't have to view it so much as something we need to do, but rather we come to him and we surrender ourselves to him. And from that place, healing will happen and healing flow from that place.
That's good. I love that. Yeah, I have a similar experience. Not with, I don't have that many curriculums that I went through. I maybe went through a couple just because, and I read like a lot of self-help books and stuff, but I didn't feel like they were very helpful to me in my experience, because I'm a very like, I need experience. And so whenever I learn by experience. And so most of my healing has come from really like sitting with God, like what you were talking about. And like, God has really shown me that, it's not a task, right? And it's not something that we should rush into. And we need to just like put everything that we need to heal from on a list and sit with God in it. And no, it's not like that. Like, it's really like through relationship, he brings things up in love. And like, I used to like not like the word healing, because whenever healing would come up, like as a like in sentence or in conversations or whatever, I would always think like, oh my gosh, that's some deep work right there. Like that must like be horrible,
But like
but
kind of
really,
like a effort based thing.
yes, like I had to do something to fix myself. And if I wasn't healed, then I wasn't worthy, kind of thing. And so that's like kind of what I was thinking about. And that's what I kind of saw. And so I never really liked the word healing or any of that. And so, but God has really like changed my perspective. And now I think of healing as a very gentle process, because, and like when I think of healing, I think of God's hand just like wrapping us up and just, doing it in a very gentle way, but in a very passionate way, because he does long for his children to be free of things that have been holding them back. And so I agree. Like, I think that God really does reveal things in the timing that he thinks that we can handle. And it's not all just, okay, I'm going to have to like heal all of this before I can go to the next stage or whatever. It's not a stage thing, it's a journey. And it gets, like, I like the way you put it, that it's not like an event, it's like a lifelong thing, because when you think of it as an event, you feel all this pressure to really like fix yourself and fix the things that you have gone through and like resolve them all in one sitting, whenever it doesn't take, like, it just doesn't work like that. And when you really slow down and you're not pressured or you're not rushed to heal all of those little pieces in your life, like it takes the pressure off of you, and it also like allows you to lean on God more and to really seek him out, like with the things that you're going through. So yeah, I really love the way you put that.
Yeah. I think the funny thing too is that oftentimes what we bring, I know we've talked about this, Emma, what we bring to God as like the thing that needs to heal, God, oftentimes what we bring to him is like, that's actually not what I want to talk about today, right? Yep. Like, you in your fleshly, earthly mind, you see imperfection, you see, things that you want to be different, very normal. But a lot of times God's like, no, I don't even care about that. Like, I'm really not that concerned. And when it is time to deal with that, I'm going to deal with that with you, right? But we were talking in another group that I've found when I go to God to heal, oftentimes what I've discovered is oftentimes he just wants to sit with me, and he just wants to love on me, and he just wants to meet with me. And so I'm coming with this agenda to heal something that I see needs fixing. And like, I see that, daughter, too. Today, we're not really going to worry about it. I just want to spend time with you I just want to love on you. And the overflow of his love that falls on you, the cool thing is that it is so healing, right? So we go and we're like, well, I want to heal from this, God. And God's like, okay, we're going to table that for right now. It's not really our time to deal with it. And I just want to sit with you and I just want to love on you. And the love that you receive from intimate time with God with no agenda is so healing. Like
Yeah.
it is as healing as if you answer that you were searching for, right? Or you got the why behind, what you do or your mindset. And so
Yeah.
I've just come to understand that God oftentimes has a different agenda in terms of, when we go to meet with him in those quiet places and we bring our list and he's like, let's just put the list down for now. And I just want to spend time with you. I just want to stare into your eyes and love on you. And you leave that experience and that encounter so healed and so
Yeah.
full and so just left on. And I know we've talked about that before, Emma.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. It's funny that you were saying that. As you were talking, that kind of remind me of the encounter I had with him. I think it was like right after we had penguins or something, like the next day or 2 days after or something. I was really inspired by y'all to really seek out God in relationship. And like, sometimes we can really go with our agenda and say like, okay, God, I need understanding on this. Like I need I need whatever it is that I need right now. And I'm going to
Right.
seek you out for it. I'm going to pray for myself, for this person, this situation. And I want to hear from you on it, and sometimes it's not the right time. And so God was just reminding me that like I had this encounter with him. I wasn't after anything, which is very rare for me. I wasn't after like answers. Like, I'm just being
Yeah.
honest. Like
Yes.
it's really hard for me because like, I can be anxious about some things and I just go to him
Right.
because I'm like, which is great.
One answer. Yeah.
Yeah, which is fine. It's not that he doesn't want to hear those things, but to really just seek him out above everything else that is in your mind or you're going through. He really showed me because I was just laying in bed. I was like, okay, God, like I want to encounter you deeper. And like I just want to be close with you right now. And so it was funny because the one time, well, I mean, this has happened multiple times, but it didn't happen like this, like every other time. Like I sat with God and I was really seeking him out. And so when I was doing that, like I had this whole like movie like vision. Like I was walking through the garden with Jesus and all of these things. And it was so crazy because every time we stopped walking, he brought up the things that were already on my mind. He brought them up. And so
Wow.
he was like, okay, now you can ask questions. And then I asked questions and he gave me answers. And then we started walking and I was enjoying our relationship, just being close. And then we would stop somewhere else and he would bring it up. He would bring something else up.
Mm,
And it's just so crazy. Like, it's not that he doesn't care about the things that we think
right.
about,
Right.
but he's going to bring them up when he feels that we are ready. And
Yeah.
honestly, it's a blessing in disguise. It might be really hard that, okay, like God doesn't want to say anything about this right now. No, it's not the
Right.
case. He cares very much. But he wants to reveal his love to you in a way
Yeah.
that's more healing than the things that you want to talk about. And
Yeah.
so, like I think you kind of said this at Penguins the other night too. Like it's not that like sometimes he won't even bring it up ever. But most of the time, like he'll bring it up like, a couple of days, whatever that looks like for what you need. But yeah, it's not that he doesn't care. It's just that, it's not, it would, if it came too early and you got too much too soon, it wouldn't
Mm,
be very healing. It would honestly
yeah.
overwhelm you. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's really good. As you were speaking, Emma, I thought to myself,
Mm-hmm.
how often is our list of things that we're bringing to God actually getting in the way of relationship with God?
Yeah.
So we come to God with all of our askings, all of our anxieties, all of that, not a bad thing. But how often are we coming to God with that, calling it relationship, right?
Yeah.
really actually missing the relational part, right? You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
missing the encounter, like you're talking about, where he just gets to love on you, right? He gets to just sit with you. And so it's both,
Yeah.
which I love that vision that you had, because it's like, it's exactly what, like, kind of what God was showing you. Like, no, 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 I care about those things that you're talking about. But hey,
Yeah.
I really, really also just want to spend time with Emma with no agenda and no list or any of that.
Yeah.
And so I think it's both. And that's a beautiful vision. That's a really
Yeah.
beautiful vision.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
was crazy.
yeah, that's beautiful. It's cool because I was talking to a friend this week. I went to dinner with her, and we were kind of talking about healing. And she said this, and I was like, oh, that's deeper healing. We were just kind of talking about, healing and processing and what that looks like. And she was saying she had just gotten out of a relationship. She had just gone through a breakup. And she said that she went to this event, and all she said to God was like, God, I just want to heal. And God didn't bring up any to her that had to do with like the relationship, nothing. Like it wasn't about what happened. He just loved on her in a way that she said she felt so healed. But he never
Yeah.
brought up anything about the relationship. But he loved on her, revealed himself to her, and she left in a healed place. And she said to me, she was like, I received healing, but I didn't even talk about my relationship. I didn't even talk about anything to do with that. And I was like, it hit me in that moment. I was like, that's deeper healing. Like, that's what deeper
Mm-hmm.
healing is, when, we're so just overwhelmed by his presence and just his love, that we receive healing in places that, we didn't even know we needed. Or the love of God just pushes all of it out, without even
Yeah.
having to like process it sometimes, right? It's just his love can just overtake you. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought that was amazing. And I think another thing with healing too is it's twofold, because you know it's to what we're saying, like what we're sharing about, not looking at healing as a performance, or something you have to strive for. It's twofold, because that's not an excuse to not deal with the areas that are a problem, right? Because we don't want to be the believers that say, well, I'm healed by Jesus, and we have poor behavior, and we go around and we don't love people, and we let our wounds and our hurts bleed on everybody else around us, and we are, hurtful people and toxic people. That's not at all either, a good choice, is to not deal with it, right? So that's
Yeah.
not what we're saying in that, but rather it's a balance between, let me acknowledge what I see, right? Let me acknowledge what I see in myself, and the areas that I know may be unhealthy and that I need to bring to God, but also let me not just focus on those areas so much that I forget that God right now sees me as loved, healed, whole, delivered, right? And
Yeah.
so it's such a delicate walk and a delicate balance between not excusing poor behavior, but also not identifying yourself by the areas in which you wish were different, right? In the
Yeah.
areas in which you need healing from. And I see some, Emma, I see honestly extremes in the church, right? We
Yeah.
have, high focus on behavior and, um, you know, performance, all of that. But then you have the opposite too, that is not good, which is, we don't really acknowledge our stuff. We don't really acknowledge that we have some things that are not good. They're toxic. They need to
Yeah.
be worked on. So I think it's about finding that balance of relationship with Jesus being the priority, and always walking from an identified place in him, but acknowledging the places and bringing the places that we do seek healing in to him, and allowing Jesus to decide what that healing process looks like. Because
Yeah.
sometimes I think that's it too. It's like our agenda on when healing should happen, how healing should happen. And really that's on God's timeline, and releasing that back to him, and saying, what does this healing journey look like? What do you want it to look like?
Yeah, that's good. And I think also like we kind of think of healing as like, oh, I need to heal from like this physical situation, like things that you've seen and you've experienced. Like those are all great things, but like also like what I have learned is that I heal very quickly from physical, like the actual situation, but I have a harder time healing from the mindsets that I've taken on because of the situations. And it's like,
That's good.
yeah, because it's like so for me, like I said, I learned from experience, right? I have a very easy time forgiving people and moving forward, but my mind is still back into I learned this from the situation, and so this is how it's going to be all the time because I've taken on a mindset that I didn't even realize sometimes that I even taken on.
Mm.
And I think also like for me, like when I sat with God with some things that have come up again recently, you know, he was like, it's not the situation that you're healing from. It is the mindset that you have taken
Mm.
on.
It's
And
good.
so it's just like whenever he like said stuff like that, it's like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even realize it. Or I mean,
Yeah.
maybe I knew like some of the mindsets that I've taken on, but I think it's just important to like realize too that it's not just you physically and spiritually like, oh my gosh, like this happened to me. But no, it's also like in your mind, it's mentally like you have learned something from this situation that is causing you maybe to hide yourself in some areas where if such similar situations come up, you kind of like fall backwards a little bit because you have that mindset, right?
Mm.
And but God has just really been showing me that like, hey, like not everyone that has hurt you in this way is going to hurt you. Like not everyone is going to hurt you like somebody else did, you know? And whenever you start to like really grasp that, like, yeah, it's okay to be aware, right? That oh my like this situation might not be the best for me or this might happen, but it's also like having a little trust in God, like, hey, like, you know, like, even if I do go through something like this, like, I'm going to trust that God is going to bring me through with the correct mindset. Like,
Yeah.
because recently, like, there's things that have happened, like years ago that I realized that I had taken on mindsets from,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Yeah.
recently it's not the same people, but it's the same circumstances kind of. Um, and like I realized that I was putting that same mindset on those people and like the situation,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't even accurate, like
Yeah.
it, you know. And just I think whenever that time does come, like I've really learned that whenever similar things come up like that, it's an opportunity for us to really like allow God to touch those areas and
Right.
um for him to heal those mindsets, and not only that but like the physical situation at hand. But it's an opportunity for us to seek him out and to see him in those places that maybe we
Right.
didn't see him before.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. That's beautiful. And
Mhm.
I think that's a certain level of maturity that we hit when we can understand that the circumstance I'm in is actually, it's not even the people, it's not even them, it's actually my mindset, right?
Yeah.
And so it really frees us. And then it frees us from that offense, right? And then it
Yeah.
allows us to walk in a place of true forgiveness because then you live from that place of, oh, like this isn't them, right? It's not
Yeah.
them that are like some big bad person. I'm going to release them from that because it's actually not them. It's really my mindset that has been, like you're saying, acquired over many, many years.
Yeah.
And, and God really desires to touch those places in our mind whenever, whenever he sees the time fit. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
so much of our life and what is around us and what we find ourselves in is actually, like you're saying, it's just a product of the way that we think, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, that's a journey that God has had me on too, is just showing me the way that I think about things and how I even got to that mindset, right? Like, how did I
Yeah.
even get to that mindset? And then once the Lord reveals that to you and kind of the why behind why you think that way, then in my experience, you become self-aware and you can catch it a little bit faster and you can be like, oh,
Yeah.
wait a minute, there I am with that same mindset, but that's not my reality, right? That's not my reality of what is in front of me. It's just the way that my mind consistently has
Yeah.
thought of something. Um, so I feel like there's a level of self-awareness that is gained as well through that experience that you're talking about, Emma.
Yeah. And what's also like really healing is whenever you have that self-awareness, you kind of catch it and then you're like, wait a second. Like, and that's like honestly, like that's like a flip for you too. It's not like, I mean, sometimes you'll be healed from it instantly because God will like reveal it to you, or you might act a certain way and then like later on he'll be like, wait a second, like you did this or you said this or you thought this, but that's not the way I wanted you to think about it. And so he'll show you. And so you're not just doomed like with all of these like mindsets that you've taken on. Absolutely not. Like he's going to show you, if you seek him out with it and you really pay attention. And also something that I had written down because I was like, deeper healing, like what does that even mean? Like this kind of makes sense now, like why he had me write this down. He said deeper healing is a willingness to allow him to touch the areas that we try to hide from ourselves and from others. And so if we're trying to hide our mindsets, we're trying to hide our actions or whatever, like however we think, like we're not going to get the healing that we really say that we want. We have to be willing to allow him to touch us in a way that, it can be touched because, there's some things that like we go through that may be super painful and we don't allow him to touch it yet because
Right.
we might be scared, but he can't heal it all the way. You know what I mean? Like we have to be willing to let him do that too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
That's beautiful. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. Yeah. I think in my own experience, I've noticed I can be like you're saying, I can be really hard on myself and be like, why am I still thinking this way? Right? Why do I still have this mindset? And I've kind
Yeah.
of, come to understand that a lot of times, God touches our heart and God heals places in our heart. And we receive healing, like you're saying, Emma, and that
Mm-hmm.
happens in the heart. But there's a second part of our mind that takes time to renew, right?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, we'll be like, well, I thought I was healed from this, right? Like, why am I still here? And it's like, no, you did receive healing. It's not as though you didn't have that experience or encounter with God in that way. But our
Yeah.
mindsets that we've acquired over so many years, they just take time to be renewed. I mean, the mind is so powerful, right? And the
Yeah.
way that our thoughts have, the way that we've thought for so many years it's a path, right? That's been carved out. And so it takes time and it takes intention to be able to kind of begin to change the way that we think. But that first
Yeah.
part of that process being allowing God to get your heart, right? And really touch your heart and heal your heart. And then I feel like the second part comes, which is your mindset and being aware of when you're thinking that way and then making a conscious choice to change the way you're thinking, right?
Yeah.
And to kind of, yeah, to think a different way. So I think it's a two-part process and we have to have a lot of grace with ourselves
Yeah.
when we know that we've had a healing experience and encounter, but our mindsets and the way that we think about something still might not be completely changed, and we can be hard on ourselves, right? And
Yeah.
so yeah, it's a journey of thinking different, of consciously choosing different thoughts.
Yeah. I know like I have a hard time with that, like specifically, like I can be hard on myself whenever I think in similar ways that I didn't want to think, you know?
Right.
And, but I will say though, like whenever you really sit with God with it, you know, and like what you're saying, like he'll get into your heart, and then he'll also like, you know, we've kind of been talking about like the mind of Christ recently, in different conversations, and it's all about a revealing, right? Like God is he's wanting to reveal himself to us, not only his love, but like the way his mind works. He wants to reveal all of these like different things to us. And so if we just honestly, if we just sit with God and we can pray about those things, we can pray about the mindsets that we've been having, and he will answer us at some point.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like he will say something, or even then, like even if we're just with him, like we're going to be revealed something of him, like something of his nature will be revealed, whether that's directly through what we're asking or about his heart, about his love, about his mind. And that automatically, whenever you sit with God, it is like what you're saying, like it is healing in some point. And like you might think, oh, like I haven't healed from this situation, and so I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. No, it's not it at all. Like you're healing in different areas that need to be healed first before you can heal from something else, you know? And I feel like for me personally, like God has really like showed me that, let me like he's like grounded me in a sense, like he's grounding me into himself first. He is
Mm.
showing me his love first before I can heal
Mm.
from other things, so then whenever
Mm.
that gets hard, I can go back to
Oh,
what I
that's good.
know. You
That's
know,
really good.
it's kind of like the firm foundation thing, right? Like
Yeah.
God is our firm foundation, and so when things do get hard, and regardless if they're hard or not, we're going to go back to him. And so
That's so good.
yeah, it's like you're not, it's a step, you know, it's not like we're trying to get somewhere, but it's like God is wanting to reveal himself to you so you can be grounded, so you can keep going back to him whenever things get hard, when situations come up, when your mindsets continue like the mindsets that you used to have come back up, like you can be grounded in his love and in his mind. um yeah, and it's just a revealing, it's a
Yeah.
revealing for everything, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's important to remember sometimes, or maybe this is just my own thought process for a long time, but I guess I used to kind of feel like God's priority in my life was to heal me. And that came from a
Mm,
place of perfectionism, right? God's priority is to make me better. God's priority is to, make me healed, make me this. And what I began to understand is that isn't God's priority, right? God, God's
yeah,
most, that God's greatest desire is simply relationship with you, right? Is just you. Doesn't matter if you're healed or not. It's just you. And so I say that, Emma, because it's very similar.
yeah,
I love what you said about like knowing the love of God and experiencing the love of God being the foundation. Because what can happen is if our focus is healing, but we don't have an accurate view of the Father's love and the Father's character, it can actually be very damaging, right? It
yeah,
can be a very hurtful experience, because what do we have to fall back on, right? What do we have? What, through what lens are we healing from? So I
yeah,
love that you bring that up. Like the most important thing, and sometimes the journey that God has you on is not healing, but rather to really know his character and to know his heart, because that's
yeah,
the most important thing out of anything.
yeah,
And so, yeah, healing not being the priority. Fixing is not his
hmm,
priority. It's not it. Relationship is what his greatest desire is for us.
yeah,
But Emma, I would love to talk about, let's talk a little bit about what healing with God looks like, because we can hear a lot of misconceptions, right? Or we have in our mind maybe an idea of what healing with God looks like. And for me, for the longest time, when I thought of healing, I thought of just like on the ground, like just, it's like sobbing, which that does happen to me. I do cry a lot with God, but like just on the floor sobbing, couldn't, just can't even get myself together, wanting to pound the ground. And experienced something very, very different. And so I want you to share a little bit about that, and I can kind of pass on to you as well.
Yeah. Of course, there's been moments where like I was like bawling to God.
Yeah. Oh,
I
me
will
too. God
say,
makes me cry all the time.
yeah, I'm like, but there's been times where I'm like, oh my God, this just happened. Let me go cry into this pillow and just, like I just want to be like there, But like God has shown me that I mean, it is kind of what we said at the beginning, like it is a very gentle
Mm-hmm.
process for me. Like, and I will say though, like the way that he brings things up is based on who you are and what you can handle. So for me, like I need it very gently to happen. And so when I think about like how my healing looks with God, it's very relational for me. It's very I'm like he is holding me constantly. Like if something is going wrong and I need to heal from something, or I have a mindset that I'm kind of beating myself up over, he is always going to hold me. Like
Mm-hmm.
always. It is, he is hugging me, he is embracing me. And that for me is the healing that I need. And then he will bring
Yeah.
it up later. There might be times where, and it happens differently all the time, I will say, but there might be times where I go to him about something that I'm going through and he gives me a revelation right there. He gives me something to boost or to change my perspective. And then from then on, like that's all I needed. Sometimes it's just like that. It's like a switch. But other times I really need to sit with him and in
Right.
time and in relationship and in seeking him over however long that looks for me. I receive the healing that I need. And so then I can move forward. So it's not that like it's always going to be on the floor, bawling, going through a curriculum, whatever. For me, it's not curriculum. For me, it is really sitting with God and being in relationship. And not saying that curriculums don't work, but for me, I haven't found one that I seriously like I can heal, from, unfortunately. But I will say though, identity has really helped me in just discovering who I am and who God is to me.
Yeah.
And through that, like seeking him in relationship has brought the healing that I desire. So I guess curriculums do pave the way for me
Yeah.
to experience
Yeah.
healing.
Yeah.
But in relationship is where I find healing, and just sitting with God and honestly like
Yeah.
processing everything. And I say this all the time, like maybe 90% of the time, 80% of the time, like I go to God with something and I don't get anything. Like because he wants to sit with me. And
Right.
that's how I heal. That's how I process things. I sit with God in them so that I can heal not only the physical circumstance at hand, but my mind and my heart needs to be refreshed in him. And
Yeah.
I need a deeper love that I can actually like sit with him with, and a deeper relationship and closeness with him that I can't get if I'm just trying to actually
Right.
heal from something.
Yeah.
So he kind of just picks up the pieces and he kind of just puts it in. And like every time I think about his healing, he just gently places it forward. And he's like, this is for you. And this is for you. And
Yeah.
I'm giving it to you in love. And I want to walk with you in this. And he always
Yeah.
does.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I
Mm-hmm.
like what you said, curriculum books and all of that can really kind of bring it up to the surface, but then the Holy Spirit is
Yeah.
one that is doing that internal, that internal tangible healing and heart work.
Yeah.
That's my experience too. um
Mm-hmm.
and I so agree with you. It's funny because I used to view healing as like, I'm going to sit with God and I'm going to hear from him and I'm going to cry a whole lot. And like you said, that still happens for me. I definitely still have moments like that, and they're so beautiful and they're so intimate and they're so needed. But God really has me on a journey right now of, he said a lot to me, go and I will show. And rather than sitting and waiting, he's like, I want you up. And then throughout your day, I'm going to speak to you and I'm going to give you little things. And so healing for me right now, There's moments of sitting and crying, right? But then there's also a lot of God will just kind of bring something up to me or reveal something to me or remind something of my past and give me a different way of thinking about it. And I'm receiving healing. Like I can feel my mind and my heart gaining that healing, but I didn't, I didn't sit and just cry my eyes out. And so I think it depends on the season that you're in. And I think it depends on, like you're saying, Emma, what God really, what you need, because God meets our needs, right? So God is a God who meets your needs in the way in which you need it delivered. And so sometimes, like you're saying, there's a season where it is in just quiet solitude places. And then in other times, it is as you go throughout your day, and they're quick little revelations or quick little, reminders or just perspective shifts. And so healing doesn't have to look like that. Healing doesn't have to look like a, a 6-month journey that, you are just bawling your eyes out every day. And sometimes it does. Sometimes God puts you in kind of an intensive season, but there's also seasons where, just, I think it's important for us to know that God has the ability to heal like that, right? To quickly just shift our mind and change our thought pattern, that is just as lasting, and it's just as powerful as sitting, and weeping and all of that. All of them are beautiful. But like you said, Emma, I think it's really important that we remember that God is a gentle God. So we don't need to be scared when we come to God in healing, because we're only going to find the love of God. We're not going to find anything scary. We're not going to be shamed. We're not going to be condemned. We're not going to be ridiculed. You're only going to find the love of God. And sometimes we can view healing as big and scary, because it's like, oh my gosh, I have to face myself. Oh my gosh, I have to look at everything. And yes, we have to look at stuff, but when God is involved, it is a place of grace. It is a place of compassion and empathy and a love that we could just you can't even describe in words. And so that place of healing is not something to be scared of, and it's not something to push away. It's something that we can boldly walk into as sons and daughters, because the truth is, everything's already been done. There's not another thing that we have to earn, not another place that you have to heal. The place that you sit in right now, unhealed, is the same place you sit in healed. It is righteous and called, right, and adored. And so when we get that mindset, like you're talking about, Emma, that identity, we're not scared to go to God. We're not scared to go into the throne room with all of our stuff, because what we will find is the exact same thing. It is love and mercy and grace. It never changes. No matter healed or not, we stand in the same place. I should say we sit in the same place, in a position of rest and authority and identity in Christ, healed or not healed. And so we can walk into those places of healing with a boldness and our head held high, despite what we've done and despite what we're healing from, because I am as healed and called now as I am after the healing process. That is how God sees you, in perfection. And so healing isn't about God. It's not about God getting to view you different. It's not about God getting you more holy and more healed. God already views you as perfect and healed. Healing is about us. Healing is about us getting to live the abundant life that God so desperately wants for you. It's not about God approving of us more. God approves of you now, and God approves of you in a week when you've healed. So it's not about approval from the Father. It is about you, and it is about God's desire being that you get to live a life of just freedom, and a life of abundance, and a life of fun, and not living in a mind of bondage. And so I think that's just important that we know that healed or not healed, God's view of you doesn't change. and God's perspective of you isn't any different. And so we can approach him with boldness and confidence that the God that we will receive is one that is readily available and willing and wanting to meet you and have relationship with you.
That's good. Also, like while you were talking, kind of going back to like setting the foundation with relationship, with him revealing his love and himself to us. Whenever you seek out God in relationship, you will begin to trust him more and more and more. And so then healing doesn't even sound very scary anymore because you trust him and
Good.
you know his love and you know his nature. And
he's not
gonna just say, okay, you told me these things, these very painful and sensitive moments in your life, you've told them to me and now I'm gonna drop them. That is not his nature. And if you like, honestly, like whenever you are revealed his nature, you'll feel more comfortable sharing automatically because you understand that he's not going to drop anything from you. He is just willing to love you unconditionally, whether you have done something wrong, whether you've been the one that has had something done wrong to you. He is going to love you regardless. And I think that's what's important too, is just, like really seeking him out first and not as a duty at all. Like, I don't want this to seem as though like you have to take all of these steps in order to receive healing at all. Like, that's not my heart. But I think whenever we automatically sit in relationship with him, we start to heal in a very natural and organic way that allows him to be the gentle God that he is. And also, like, what was I going to say? Oh, also, whenever we are going to him with all of these things, like, don't beat yourself up because God isn't doing it in an instant. Sometimes he will, sometimes he won't. And if you plunged all of it on you in one instant and it wasn't what you really needed, it wouldn't be the fullness of it. Honestly, you'd be more hurt by it than healed. So just allowing that time to just play out and that healing to play out how he wants it to will allow that fullness to take place, and it'll really ground in your heart, and it'll sit there and it'll be soaking in your heart and it'll dwell in your heart because you really experienced and had the patience and the willingness to sit with him in those areas that were really painful for you, rather than just going about and saying, I'm healed from this and I did this and I should be healed from it now. Yet, sometimes it's only partial healing. Like, you need to really sit with God in it and allow him to, pretty much run the course the way he wants it to and the way he knows is best for you. Because sometimes, checking it off of a list is more for you than it is for him, yeah. And so just being aware of that and make sure you're sitting in the fullness of it so that you can move forward without, and living the abundant life that you were talking about too. Because you want to live in the fullness of it. I trust me, you want to live in the fullness. It's beautiful that way.
Yeah. I love it. Well, I am going to pray for us as we close out. And then, yeah. All right, God, thank you so much just for this conversation, just about healing, Lord. And we just thank you most of all that you love us and you see us as healed and just adored and accepted regardless of healing, God. So we just thank you for the words that you speak over us, even when we feel as though we are in imperfect places, right? When we feel as though we need fixing, Lord, I just thank you, God, that you sing over us words like accepted and loved and called and wanted, despite where we feel as though we may be. And so right now, I see you singing that over your children that are listening, God. I see you reminding them right now, God, that they are all of those things with or without healing, God, with or without behavior modification, that you call them all of those things, that they are chosen and loved by you, God. And so we just pray that all words that have been spoken would just resonate in people's hearts, God, that they would just hear the love of the Father from the words that we have spoken, God, and that they would just begin to sit in quiet places with you, God, that they would begin just, to just seek you, God, and to listen to your voice to find you in every place, ordinary, not ordinary, God. We thank you for we thank you for this word, God, and we know that it is out and that it will reach the people that you want it to reach. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I love it. Well, like we said, we are Dream Movement Katie, and we are in our deeper series, and we have another set of messages next week. So be sure to tune in on Wednesday at 7 and then Sunday at 11 and 2. They've been just so full and so fruitful and so challenging, and so we hope that you continue to join us. Emma, do you have anything else?
Nope. I just love y'all.
All right, guys, we love y'all and we will see y'all soon. Bye.
Bye.